In the lawless waters of the South China Sea, one woman rose from the shadows of a brothel to command the most feared pirate fleet in history. Ching Shih wasn't just a pirate. She was a criminal mastermind running an empire of thieves, smugglers, and mercenaries. With over 70,000 men under her rule, she took on the Chinese navy, outmaneuvered European warships, and built a criminal empire so powerful that the government had no choice but to strike a deal with her. How did a former prostitute become the most powerful and successful pirate of all time? How did she enforce loyalty with iron fist laws that made betrayal punishable by death? And most importantly, how did she get away with everything? Grab a drink, settle in, and let's talk about the most badass pirate you've probably never heard of. Hello everyone, my name is Aurora. Welcome to my basement where everything is work in progress, just like me. Thank you for deep diving this story with me. At the turn of the 19th century, China was a land of extreme wealth and crushing poverty. The Qing dynasty ruled with a strict law, but corruption ran deep, and life for the lower classes was brutal. Coastal villages were constantly raided by pirates, and the South China Sea was lawless, controlled more by criminals than the empire itself. For common people, survival often meant hard labor, and for women, the options were even fewer: marriage, servitude, or for the most desperate, prostitution. Brothels thrived in port cities, catering to merchants, sailors, and officials, but women working in them had little control over their lives. They were seen as disposable, sold, and traded like goods, often abused and rarely given the chance to escape. For a woman like Ching Shih, born into poverty, the odds were stacked against her from the start. Women had no legal rights, no power, and no real way to change their fate. Prostitutes in particular were at the bottom of society, forced to rely on the men who controlled them. But in a world where money spoke louder than morality, some women learned how to manipulate the system. Ching Shih wasn't just a victim of her circumstances, she was watching, learning, and waiting for her chance to rise. And when it came, she seized it with both hands. Ching Shih's early life is largely a mystery, but what we do know is that she was born around 1775 in Guangdong, China. Like many poor girls at the time, she had few choices and was eventually sold into prostitution. She worked in a floating brothel, likely serving wealthy merchants, corrupt officials, and even pirates who controlled the waters. But Ching Shih wasn't just another forgotten woman in the trade. She was smart, observant, and knew how to read people. Some stories suggest she used her charm and intelligence to gather secrets from powerful men, possibly even blackmailing them for protection or favors. This was a dangerous game. Prostitutes who crossed the wrong people could disappear overnight. But Ching Shih was already proving she was willing to take risks for a better life. Her biggest opportunity came in 1801 when she caught the attention of Zheng Yi, a notorious pirate leader. Some say he was so captivated by her that he asked for her hand in marriage. Other claims she made a calculated move, negotiating her way into the deal. Either way, Ching Shih didn't just become his wife, she became his equal. She insisted on having a say in his pirate operations, giving her power that no other pirate wife had. Together they expanded their fleet into a massive criminal empire. And while Zheng Ji was feared on the seas, it would be Ching Shih who would take their reign of terror to a whole new level. When Zheng Ji died suddenly in 1807, most expected his pirate empire, to collapse. But Ching Shih had no intention of fading into the background. She acted fast, securing loyalty from Zheng Ji's most trusted men and forming a powerful alliance with Chong Pon Tsai, her late husband's adopted son and second in command. Some say she seduced him, Others believed she was simply aware of how to play the game of power better than anyone. With his support, she took full control of Flag Fleet, a criminal empire of over 70,000 pirates, more than the entire Chinese navy at the time. Unlike other pirate crews that fell apart due to greed and betrayal, Ching Shih ruled with absolute authority, enforcing a brutal code of conduct and discipline. Any pirate caught stealing from their own crew or disobeying orders faced immediate execution. Those who deserted were hunted down and killed. But Ching Shih wasn't just ruthless, she was a master strategist. She ran her fleet like a military operation, dividing it into different units, each responsible for specific crimes: smuggling, extortion, human trafficking, and full-scale raids on villages. Ships that refused to pay her protection fees were burned to the ground, and entire towns were wiped out if they resisted. She even forced the Chinese government to pay her pirates to leave certain areas alone, turning her enemies into unwitting business partners. Under her rule, piracy became an unstoppable force, and the South China Sea was completely under her control. But when you build an empire on crime and bloodshed, it's only a matter of time before the world turns against you. Ching Shih's wealth was unlike anything seen in the pirate world. With full control of the South China Sea, she didn't just steal from ships, she taxed them. Merchants who wanted to sail safely had to pay her fleet for protection, turning piracy into a highly organized business. Her Red Flag fleet looted countless villages, seized weapons from government ships, and trafficking everything from silk and spices to opium and human slaves. Some reports claim she hoarded vast amounts of gold, enough to rival some of the China's wealthiest warlords. But money alone wasn't what kept her empire strong. It was her strict control. Pirates weren't allowed to spend their loot recklessly. Everything was counted, divided, and distributed in a system that rewarded loyalty and ensured no one had reason to betray her. Even as the Chinese Navy, European forces, and rival pirates tried to take her down, Ching Shih's empire stood firm. She used spies to gather intelligence, bribed officials to look the other way, and played different factions against each other. She also had an unmatched understanding of naval warfare, striking hard when her enemies were weakest and disappearing before they could retaliate. Unlike many pirate leaders who let greed and arrogance destroy them, Ching Shih adapted. She knew when to fight, when to flee, and when to negotiate. Her fleet thrived for years under her iron rule, making her not just a criminal mastermind, but one of the most untouchable figures in history. But even the most powerful criminals know when it's time to walk away, and Ching Shih would make her final move on her own terms. Her fall from grace? Not really. As the years went on, the pressure on Ching Shih began to mount. The Chinese government, tired of being humiliated by a woman ruling the seas, launched a full-scale effort to wipe out her fleet. They even enlisted help from the British and Portuguese navies, but time and time again Ching Shih outmaneuvered them. Still, she knew that no empire, especially one built on piracy, could last forever. In 1810, she made a bold move. She walked into the governor's office and negotiated her own surrender. But this wasn't a desperate act. It was a power play. She struck an unbelievable deal, securing full amnesty for herself and most of her pirates. Not only did she avoid execution, but she and many of her men were given official military positions, especially turning former criminals into government officers. Ching Shih had done what no pirate had ever done before. She retired rich, free, and undefeated. After stepping away from piracy, Ching Shih lived a surprisingly quiet life. She married Chong Pon-tsai, the man who had once been her second in command, and together they had at least one son. Rather than living in secrecy, she remained in Canton and ran a profitable gambling house, another way to make money from those who thought they could beat the system. While most pirates met their end at the gallows or in a bloody battle, Ching Shih lived well into her 60s, dying peacefully in 1844. Her story remains one of the most remarkable in history. A woman who defied every rule, built an empire of crime, and walked away without facing a single consequence. Ching Shih wasn't just ruthless, she was calculated. To rise from a life of poverty and prostitution to leading the most feared pirate fleet in history, she had to be highly intelligent, fearless, and always one step ahead of everyone around her. She understood power, not just in battle, but in people, how to control them, how to keep them loyal, and how to make them fear her enough never to betray her. She had the mind of a strategist, ruling with strict discipline but also rewarding those who followed her rules. Unlike many male pirate leaders who let ego and violence lead them to downfall, Ching Shih was practical. She didn't take unnecessary risks, she didn't waste resources, and she never let emotions cloud her judgment. Everything she did had a purpose, and that's why she survived, where so many others have failed. But to maintain such an empire, she couldn't afford to be soft. Ching Shih ruled with an iron will, punishing betrayal and weakness without hesitation. Some might see her as ruthless, but she likely saw herself as a survivor, someone who had been dealt a cruel hand in life and refused to be a victim. She had no mercy for those who crossed her, yet she was smart enough to know when to show restraint, like when she negotiated her retirement instead of fighting to death. She was a rare kind of leader, blending fear and respect, brutality and strategy. In a world where women had no power, she took it for herself and never let it go. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around. Ching Shih wasn't a queen, a nobleman, or the wife of some powerful warlord. She was a prostitute who climbed her way to the top of the most dangerous world inimaginable. She outsmarted generals, terrorized governments, and kept thousands of cutthroat pirates under her command, not by brute strength, but by sheer intelligence and unbreakable will. She controlled an empire built on crime, where ships paid her for protection, villages were burned if they resisted, and those who betrayed her met a swift, merciless end. And yet, the most shocking part? She knew exactly when to stop. She didn't go down in flames like most criminals. She walked away on her own terms, rich, free, and undefeated. And maybe that's the real reason her story sticks with us. Ching Shih wasn't just another pirate. She beat the system. She played by no one's rules but her own, turning a life of nothing into one of the most successful criminal empires in history. And while the world remembers men like Blackbeard and Captain Kidd, she remains the one pirate who won. No tragic downfall, no betrayal, no execution. Just a woman who took everything she wanted, then left before the world could take it back. Thank you for watching and considering subscribing. You are the ones encouraging me to continue, and I appreciate you very much for it. Thank you and take care of yourself first. Bye.